Greetings and welcome to Performing in Georgia, a new podcast designed to give my audience a fun and informative journey into the performing arts in the state of Georgia. Now that's going to be especially Atlanta where I'm located, but there's also tons of great opportunities and venues all throughout the state, and I'm going to be exploring all of those with you. My name is Chuck Gonzalez, or Chuck G. Violin as I go by on this show, because, well, my last name is pretty tough to spell and pronounce, so I'm a professional violinist and violist in the Atlanta area. I'm also a conductor, a composer. I teach violin and viola lessons. I'm an 18 handicap golfer, enjoy long walks on the beach. Anyway, I am originally from Chicago, and we'll talk more about that another time, but I've also spent a lot of time in New Jersey and a few other places as well. I remember my first paid gig very well, actually. Getting paid was awesome at the time, and of course it's what the main thing that makes somebody a professional anything. That first gig for me was playing violin in a pit orchestra for a local production of Oklahoma in 1982. I was in the 6th grade and just thought it was monumentally cool to play violin and get money. So I gave up my dream of becoming an astronaut and started practicing violin for real. So through high school, junior high school, I had a few gigs here and there, but didn't start playing regularly for dollars until I got to Hartford, Connecticut when I was in college at the Hart School. I studied violin and conducting at Hart, and then did some graduate work at the University of Kansas. I've spent many years working as a violinist, violist, and a teacher, both in the New York area, Chicago, and now Atlanta. I love to perform and teach, and I intend to use this show to educate and inform all of you about the many aspects of the performing arts in the great state of Georgia. So why do this show? After so many years in the business, why would I do this now? Well, apart from technology being different now, there were two things that happened to me in the last month or so that kind of motivated me to get to it and do this. The first was a gig I did for a ladies' luncheon at a senior center locally. I was asked to provide about 30 minutes of entertainment for their weekly lunch, and this was right after Easter. Now, I've never really been very good at public speaking, but I've always known that I've had a pretty good sense of humor and I tell a good story, so I was going to go ahead and make this more of kind of like a lecture, recital type of thing where I would talk about myself and talk about performing and the kind of music that I play and then go ahead and play some music. So I went ahead and prepared that way. I did prepare some music to play, and while I didn't write down the remarks that I was going to use at the event, I did kind of practice a little bit of what I was going to say. Now, funny story, when I got there, I suddenly remembered, oh my gosh, they wanted me to play that Easter Bonnet song. Now, I didn't know the song. I still don't really know the song. Bing Crosby sang it in some movie. So I was like, uh-oh. But, I was super early because, I am a professional after all. And you never say no when somebody asks you to play a song. So, but I had forgotten to learn that song. They had asked me to do it, and oops, well. So I did have to go to the bathroom, so I set my stuff down in the other room, grabbed my phone, ran to the bathroom, and pulled up YouTube, and found the song and played it a bunch of times and learned it while I was sitting on the can. So, okay, moving on. Anyways, I was a little nervous about speaking and playing. Playing I've never really been nervous about doing, but speaking, people, they've done the studies where people are more afraid of dying than public speaking. So I certainly understand that. I did just whatever. I just kind of got going and I just started, and I got to say I was really good. Okay. I had a really lively, albeit elderly, but lively audience. And they asked some questions. We did a little Q&A, and they enjoyed the playing, obviously, and enjoyed the stories that I told about me and about the music that I was playing. So I was pretty jazzed. I was like, this is really cool, man. I want to book myself at every senior center I can find. I was getting ready to call every one of them on the phone as I was leaving. But the second thing that happened, this was a couple of weeks after that, was a performance that I attended with my wife. And we went and saw Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith is a writer and director. For those of you who don't know him, he's written and directed movies like Clerks and Chasing Amy, and one of his newer movies, Tusk. Now, I'm not going to talk about Tusk because the movie is pretty wild and way out there. But if you get a chance, Kevin Smith does a lot of podcasts, And one of the, podcasts is going to be probably like what he talked about at his show. It'll be talking about the making of that movie, and it's a really engrossing and very funny story. Now, Kevin Smith does a little kind of different kind of show than most comics, where he does a Q&A. Okay, so, people line up, there's a little microphone in the front, and they line up, he's standing on stage, and people ask questions, and then he answers them and inserts little anecdotes about the industry and about how, some backstory about his movies and people that he works with and things like that. And of course, when you go to these Q&A things, you've got, usually it's a bunch of 19-year-olds that just started film school who want to know, hey, how can I be like super rich and famous like you, man? And, but I give Kevin Smith all the credit in the world. He was extremely genuine, very real, and, very giving of his time. He spoke for over 3 hours. And the last little bit, though, he talked about, and it tied in with his movie, it talked about, how to do something, to write a script, to do a podcast, to do a YouTube show. And, he said that everybody in the audience was a content generator. Those were his words. And that we all have something to say. I mean, you can ask my wife. I've always got something to say. And the real tragedy in having something to say is to not say it or not do it or don't write that script or don't do that show. And I absolutely agree with that. I think too many people are like, well, what if they don't like it? So that was, pretty much a very motivating thing for me. I got home and started looking up how to do podcasts like pretty much right away. I mean, not that night because we get home at, 1 o'clock in the morning, but, pretty much the next day when I got up. So what's this show going to be about? Well, the main topic of this show is going to be just like the title says, the performing arts in Georgia. Now, that's going to cover all types of performing arts. So not just music, but also opera and ballet, and then lots of other goings on. In terms of music, obviously this is going to be a classically centric, boy, that's a word and a half, isn't it? Classic-centric show, so to speak. It's going to deal mostly with classical music and opera, but I do love all types of music, so we're going to be doing some shows about maybe some like indie rock and some of the local rock bands and some of the local music that takes place here. In addition, there's also going to be some instructional shows, some how-tos, talking about all the aspects of performing. So, I mean, now not just the violin, but any instrument. So, yes, there's going to be some violin-centric. I just love using that centric thing. Anyway, there's going to be some violin-centric lessons from time to time, but then also things like how to conquer stage fright, how to prepare for a concert, how to prepare for your lessons, how to practice, things like that. Now, at least one Tuesday each month is going to be Off-Topic Tuesday. Now, it'll probably be more than once a month eventually, but during these Off-Topic Tuesdays, the shows are going to talk about other passions and things that I enjoy. That's going to be like sports, go Cubs, comic books, movies about comic books, things like that. Now, definitely there's going to be some Walking Dead talk on my show because not only do I love the show, but it's filmed here in Georgia. So about 40 minutes from my house, about 5 minutes down the road, actually, is the gas station where Rick shot the little girl in the very first episode. So The Walking Dead is an interesting thing because it kind of crosses over into what my show is about, the performing arts in Georgia. I know a lot about that show. I've talked to extras on that show. I've learned, a lot about how that show works. I've seen all the places where they filmed it. So I know some things about that. So it kind of creeps into the topic of my show as well. But we'll talk more about that another time. I do want the show to be fun and entertaining. I'm trying to avoid sounding kind of like the monotone NPR guys that are on their talk shows, and don't get me wrong, I love NPR, but the talk portions can be extremely insomnia curing. I like to make smart-ass comments. I like to act like a 46-year-old teenager sometimes. So if you're easily offended when I snicker when a conductor says, hey, we need to use wood on there, when he's talking about mallets to a timpanist, and things like, movements and whatever. So, if that's kind of thing's gonna, offend you, then, maybe this might not be the show for you. But like I said, I'm just trying to make it fun, and I want to make it fun and informative, and I can't wait to get going. So I thank you for listening, and I invite you to subscribe so you can get each new episode as it comes out. Not only is it free, but as a theater director I once worked with was keen to say, it's better than free cheese. Also, please feel free to visit me at my website, chuckgviolin.com. Follow me on Twitter at chuckgviolin. Follow me on Facebook, facebook.com/chuckgviolin. Now, I'm still in the process of getting all of my social media presence and website fully functional, but there is content there and new content is being added daily. So please visit, please get involved, make some comments. I do want audience participation. As long as you can keep it to 3 expletives or less per sentence, we're going to be just fine. So I thank you again for listening, and of course, happy performing.